Elaine, I know we're gonna start at 6:30. Is it okay we start early?
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna start early.
I hear you.
Okay.
I'm ready. Good.
You're actually.
All right, the time is 6:15. We are City Council Chambers for Public Works. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hellinger, Vice Chairman Browning,
Yes.
Chairman Jones.
Here. Motion to excuse Mr. Hellinger.
Second?
Roll call.
Vice Chairman Browning,
Yes.
Chairman Jones.
Yes. Item 2 is approval of the motion summary.
I'm sorry, did you move it or did you call for it?
I'm just calling for it.
I move to approve the motion summary.
Second, roll call.
Vice Chairman Browning,
Yes.
Chairman Jones.
Yes. Item 3 is public comment. Anybody who's here for something not on the agenda, wants to step forward and talk about anything? Anybody?
If I ask, do I need to sit up there?
You sure do.
Oh, man.
Name and address.
You just state your name and address for the record, please.
Brett Latta, 376 North Sandusky.
Did you get all that, Elaine?
Yep. Yes,
Awesome.
sir.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
sir.
Good evening. I noticed First Union Street was on the 2019 draft agenda. I was just curious if that agenda is approved, would construction start fairly soon, or is there any kind of a timing on that?
Union Street's on for 2019, so typically contracts are let in June. Approval comes from the state in July, so late July, August is the start of the project.
Late
Could
July.
extend through September, even into October.
Okay. And then as far as traffic control, obviously that's a busy road with the county building there.
Construction is inconvenient, so we'll be asking people not to park on the street. There'll be times where people have limited access into their home when something's happening right in front of it, like milling or paving. But, I mean, that's about the extent of it.
Okay. And then I had a question too about signage, and it may not even be a city issue, it might even be a county issue, but a year or two ago, the county replaced the Panhandle Bridge over 23. And there's a sign there that says Olentangy River State and National Scenic River. And it's actually not a national scenic river. And I know there's much higher priorities in the city, and again, it may not be a city issue. But I just wanted to highlight that it's not a national scenic river, so it would kind of be nice to get that corrected. And I did reach out to the county about it and never got a response. So it may be beyond our city limits. I'm not exactly sure.
That part is outside the city, but we can still call our contacts and see. Do you remember who you talked to?
I reached out to the generic email,
Okay.
so it wasn't even a person. That may have been the problem.
We got plenty of contacts. We follow up, see,
Okay,
shake the bushes there.
thanks.
All right.
Thank you. Great. Item 4 is update on improvements on the Shortcut Alley. Mr. Freno, I assume.
Yeah, I'm actually just going to introduce representatives from Main Street, Susie Bilber, Zach Price tonight. Want to give a presentation on a project they're proposing.
Good evening. So with me tonight is Zach Price. Zach serves as our incoming president for next year. He's our vice president currently, and he's also the head of our design committee. And he is kind of the mastermind behind this, and so I'm going to let him do most of the talking tonight.
Thanks, Susie. I guess for the record, if you need it, I'm Zach Price, 328 North Liberty Street here in Delaware. I'll just go through. We've prepared some slides here. This is a project that we've been working on for a while, so just feel free to jump in and ask any questions throughout any of this. But just a little background on the project. This project actually came out of the February 2017 downtown parking study that the city conducted. And let's see, with that parking study, there was a recommendation to improve the pedestrian experience, and in doing that, improve pedestrian alleyways and create connections from rear parking areas to the storefronts. also with that parking study, there was a subcommittee formed that was in part of that parking study, but that subcommittee was engaged to conduct a pedestrian experience study as well. And they did a downtown walking audit at that time, so there was a series of things that they looked at and walked throughout the downtown and scored all these places based on certain criteria. The Main Street Design Committee looked at that as something that they could move forward. In the design, when I took over the design committee, my goal was to make it a little bit more project-based and try and do some of these streetscape improvement projects. So the shortcut alley there was identified as probably the most significant project that we could do, and particular items that were noted in that walking audit included paving and lighting as specific components that alley needed. So Elaine, if you could kind of fast forward a little bit. So these are just a couple images of the alley as it exists today. It's fairly dark space. It's not well lit. The image on the right there, that's Winter Street, and there's the street light there, but it doesn't do a great job at shining down that alley in the nighttime. And then on the left there, you can see that the sidewalk is it's kind of cracked down the center of it, and then collects water, which freezes in the wintertime and doesn't drain when it's not frozen. There's also a lot of leaves and dirt that collect in that alleyway. And then, Elaine, if you could fast forward. And then there's also been quite a bit of graffiti that's occurred on the side of those buildings over time. Those are on the building. I think it's the law office there.
It's on the right-hand side as you walk down the alley from Winter Street?
Yes.
Actually,
How recent are those pictures?
funny thing,
I'm sorry.
those pictures were taken last maybe spring.
Okay.
Actually, since then, the design committee was able to find some volunteers, and we actually worked on getting most of that removed. So it's very faint at this point. We worked with the Delaware County Health District. They've been told that once a building has been marked, it continues to get marked. And so we wanted to stay on top of that and try to get a lot of that removed as a part of this project. So we were able to get, like I said, a group of volunteers together and remove most of that. So if you go down there today, you won't see it as prominent as those pictures show.
Bill, I don't know if you know this or not, but I know that the police aren't here. Is it just gibberish right there, or is that something?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't want to venture to say.
Okay, all right, no problem.
You don't speak gang?
Yeah.
So we did get volunteers to help with that, and it actually most of it came off. It's hard to see today. And then Susie actually planted some flowers in the planters there,
Right.
which helped. But if you could fast forward there. So the project that we would like to complete is to transform that alley into a more pedestrian-friendly space, which would include some lighting, additional kind of planters there, new paving, and paving that would match what is on Sandusky and Winter Street, ideally with some brick pavers in there. And then we've also designed this series of steel archways to go in that alley, and then have some ideas for art that could happen throughout that, and that could be programmed from volunteers. Partners on our project include the Preservation Parks of Delaware County, the Health District, and the School District. So we've had conversations with all of those organizations about how we could engage them and how they might be able to work with different stakeholders to create some sort of an art project. For instance, Creative Foundations or the school district to program that space and then take it down at some point as well. So, Elaine, next slide, please. We looked at a ton of examples of different projects all over the country. This is just one example. So there's, planters, there's artwork. Try and make a space that's pedestrian friendly and that would connect that rear parking lot to Winter Street. We're not really proposing tables and chairs down there. It's not wide enough, but we are proposing the steel archways, lighting, and then a place for artwork as well. So, next, please. So on the left, you can see the current condition from Winter Street, and then on the right is just an image of what it may look like. There's those steel archways, the end caps, both at Winter Street and then at the south side on the parking lot are slightly different than the others. They've got a big circle with a D on it, and we actually had a sample made. I can pass that around, but it's basically just powder coated steel. That's what it's made of, and then the bricks that are shown there are similar to what is currently in Sandusky Street. However, the same company that manufactures the bricks that are in Sandusky Streets makes a version that's more well suited to this particular location and allows water to drain better. So. And we went through, and this is a design of how that would work. So the image there on the top left that's labeled as 5, that's just a perspective from Winter Street, kind of looking down that alley. You can see where those brick pavers might be there. The center image on the top there, labeled as 3, that would be the arches that are at the end caps at Winter Street, and then on the south end of that alley at the parking lot. And then below it, number 2 there, that is an arch that would be an intermediate arch that would be attached to the adjacent buildings there. And then the plan view on the right, labeled number 1 there, that shows where the arches are located. I believe there's 8 of them there. And then the brick paving extends from about the face of those existing buildings there on Winter Street all the way back to the asphalt paving in the parking lot. And I think the last detail is more of a technical detail about the paver assembly. It's basically a brick, but the sides of it have a little part that kind of sticks out so the bricks don't butt tight against each other. They let water flow through, which we feel could help address some of the drainage issues there and reduce the need for snow removal and ice there. I've actually used this. My real job is I own an architecture firm. We do a lot of public projects, mostly K through 12 education and municipal work, but we've used this detail on probably installed acres of this.
So it's a permeable paver from like Belton Brick or something like that?
This is actually, we were actually looking at Hamilton Parker. So Hamilton Parker supplies the bricks for Sandusky Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They get it from Belton Brick.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. So the funding for the project, the total project cost is, it's around 40 plus $1,000. About 10 of that is in design and labor fees that have donated to the project. About 15 of it is in the actual lighting and the steel for the project, and the other 15 is would go to what we've estimated for that the concrete or in brick sidewalk component. That 15,000, that's basically just my experience doing a lot of those public projects. They're not prevailing wage projects, but they're bid public projects. So the funding, we've put together a campaign for this. So if you could flip to the next slide. We haven't actually gone out and asked for donations yet, but we have a lot of people that have told us that they want to donate to the project. And I'll back up just slightly here and talk about the timeline for this. And I mentioned, the design committee went through, looked at the study that was done in 2017. We went through and identified this as a project, came up with this design. We did meet with Bill and Diane Gunther and Dave Eflin at the site. I think that was last September or October, and looked at it, kind of talked about how it might work, and kind of finalized our design plan, which we submitted. And our understanding was that Diane and Dave were working on an agreement that has been drafted that would allow us to move forward with this, and essentially that just states that we understand that we have these arches and the lighting there, but it is a public right-of-way, so anytime, if the city decides to put a road through there or something else, then that could all come down, which is completely understandable. And then with that piece, before we finalize that piece, we understood, well, we need to come present to this committee here. So that's why we're here today. So our hope is to move that forward. And then going back to this funding piece, we would like to ask the city to help contribute to the project as far as just the sidewalk component is. Sidewalk's in pretty poor shape currently. We would ask that you just consider, as part of this project, replacing that sidewalk. If it's concrete, that's okay, but if we can do something a little better and do the brickscape, that would be fantastic. And then that would help us with the additional fundraising. So it would make it easier for us to say, okay, the city is contributing to replacing and fixing this public sidewalk, and then this is a community project to make this a more pedestrian-friendly, nicer space to connect the parking to Winter Street there. So we're actually very confident about raising the money for this. The committee members on our design committee, there's 4 or 5 of them that have each said that they would have easily, they'd be happy to give $1,000 to $1,500 to the project. We've gotten great pricing from, there's a local, the Van Gundy family, I'm sure you know, owns Fortin Iron Works, that is giving us a good price and donating some of the labor on the steel work. And then additional funding, we would look at doing a crowdfunding campaign and reach out to the whole community of Delaware to help fund this, so it kind of makes it their project. And all those little thumbnails on the right are other examples of alley projects that have been done throughout the country. And then there is a crowdfunding platform that we're looking at, which is the next slide. Thanks. Patronicity is a crowdfunding project, kind of like a Kickstarter, but it's really for these types of community projects. And they actually, I mean, this is the homepage of their website. It says, "Let's build vibrant communities and crowd grant alley renovations." So it's kind of the perfect vehicle for this. So the funding isn't necessarily as much of an issue as long as we feel we can get the city to kind of help us with that effort in a way, so that it's a contribution from the city as well as the community. So, and then of course Main Street will facilitate the whole process. So.
All done?
Yes.
Good. Any questions from staff or?
Have you talked to anybody, the Rutherford B. Hayes Committee and their fundraising and their experiences? Have you talked to them?
Mhm.
Okay, anything you
Yeah.
gleaned that was worthwhile? Or?
I sit on that committee,
Okay.
so I'm familiar with the folks that have contributed to that campaign, and they're like at 76% funded, and they have a couple outstanding asks out there that they're just waiting to hear back from. So they're almost 100%. So, which shows that the community does support these kind of efforts. And again, it only helps folks feel more safe when parking in that public parking lot behind the building. So I think it has been identified. Chris, you were on the Main Street Board for a number of years, and when I got here, this was a project that was something that was on the design committee's plate back then and just hasn't moved forward. And so we out of the pedestrian experience and the parking study, once it was noted again, we felt like it was time to put it back in the forefront of everyone's minds.
I mean, I love the idea. It's, I think it's overdue. I mean, that's used all the time. And just Bill, if the city were to contribute, would that be part of a CIP program?
I think so. We've talked a number of times. We don't have an appropriation in this budget to hire someone to do the work. So I can't tell you what that Zach provided, a $15,000 number, maybe a little higher than that based on some of our local contractors. We talked about doing it in kind in-house, but that would take a week and a half to 3 weeks of our public works crew away from the streets to do that. So I don't think we really support that. So the in between would be we work on an appropriation at some point and get good solid numbers from a contractor to put in the paver standard to improve the drainage and to kind of complete the project, you know, according with the vision that has been presented. So that'd be our recommendation, and we could do some work and try to nail down a little bit better the costs associated with that. I think you've got around $15, $16 a square foot for the paver, and we can't touch that in-house with our labor and our costs. But we can see what the community contractors can come up with if we wanted to pursue that and actually we can do it two ways. We can put it in the CIP and approach it as something we could do next year. Or we can do a supplemental if you reached all your funding monumentally in a month and wanted to do your steel work this year. We'd want to see the pavement done first, so no one has to work around the steel arches.
Has your fundraising begun now? Are we still at?
No,
zero?
we have a lot of people that say they want to contribute to the project,
So
but
it's at the point where we're waiting for what the city's gonna do and then, okay.
we're really waiting on finalizing the agreement for that alleyway so that we can then know that it's a for sure. Then we can finalize our agreement with the adjacent property owners and request funding.
Right. No, I know that George isn't here, but I mean, I would like to see this move forward to the council level for appropriation and see what happens from there. So I don't know whether, do we need like some sort of,
What we could do is work more on, yeah, I think we should have a motion to
Official
move it to
motion.
full council, but probably after we get better costing on what a contractor contractor would cost, so you'd know what we're obligating ourselves to at the full council level.
Okay, so yeah.
What's our next, do we want to pass that now?
I think we just want to have a recommendation from this committee to move for a presentation to full council for appropriation. It probably won't make the next council meeting, obviously, on Monday,
Right.
so maybe,
Probably the first.
probably won't be till June.
Probably June,
Because
yeah.
we'll have one meeting this month, so
Right.
I'll leave that motion to you.
Okay, I will move that we, let's see. Move the Shortcut Alley proposal to next available council meeting, and if we could get some additional quotes or background, that'd be great.
Is that good for you?
Do you need it for a supplemental or?
I think just for discussion for
For
appropriation.
discussion?
Yeah.
Okay.
I second that. Roll call?
Vice Chairman Browning?
Yes.
Chairman Jones?
Yes. Motion passes. We're on our way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, thank you. All right, item 5 is discussion of Franklin parking lot, some sort of dumpster urban art project.
If you, you guys have a minute to stay, or are you in a hurry? This is related to, it's related to your issue, yes. So yes, I think we've talked about this at the Parking Safety Committee level, now we're talking about it at Public Works. Do you want to bring the picture up of the look of the dumpsters today?
I'm sorry?
The one you added to the desktop of the Franklin lot. We consolidated all our public dumpsters into one location behind Franklin Street to resolve a whole lot of issues and kind of infighting over whose dumpster is what and who has rights to what. So we did this last year and piloted it to make sure it was going to work, and it has. Everyone's settled down on who has rights to what dumpsters, and they're all putting it in the right place now and doing a pretty good job. The second part of it was, once we put this big block of dumpsters there, what do we do with it? Because it doesn't look that attractive. So we came up with a couple different concepts, and if you want to flip to all those other pictures there. There's two ideas we floated out there. One is we can do the traditional type of screening that Lane's going to show here. You can just kind of roll through some of those. That's the traditional, cheapest screen you can do, typical wood screen around a dumpster. There's a part brick, part wood type screening. Keep moving. There's a limestone, cedar screening. And then the other one we floated out there was not screen them and do allow them to have public art displayed on them. And there's several examples right there of what public art in other locations have come out like. There's several in a row right there. So we're really presenting this because we're at the point now saying, what do we want to do? We don't want to just leave it the way it is. It does look bad. We talked about the public art a little bit around the presentation beginning of the year. We're getting mixed reviews from different folks. I know the mayor doesn't like the public art idea, likes the more traditional screening. Since Main Street's here and they're just presented a project, if they wouldn't mind making some comments either way. We need to get this thing off of. We need to move this thing. So we'd like some feedback.
On my vote, I love the public art thing. That's me. Yeah.
I'll go first.
You're on the spot
I
now.
actually like the public artwork as well. We have Erin from the Ross Art Museum sit on our design committee, and it is something that she is wanting to see in our downtown is more public art. And I think the walls, I think that has a place in some communities, but I think this is more of this is more fun to me, and I think people in Delaware would like this.
I like the public art as well. I actually have, I own a few buildings in downtown Columbus across from the convention center, and they're on High Street, and the North Market is right behind us, and we're dealing with a similar issue where we have one of the buildings has its own dedicated dumpster and we were able to build a enclosure which is actually in the public right of way, and it looked nice when we built it, and it's very difficult to maintain, and then trash spills out of the dumpster inside of the enclosure, and somebody has to clean it, and it doesn't look great. And then we've more recently finished renovating some adjacent buildings there and have dumpsters which the city of Columbus would not allow us to build another enclosure, so we have another dumpster that's parked on the sidewalk there, and it's actually easier to clean around it, and with it, I love the artwork idea. So
Thank you.
Thank you. So we've also reached out to, I've talked with Aaron, in fact, I met with Aaron and Brett Cook, who's the artist who will be doing the mural on the side of the Strand building. But also reached out to Delaware Artists Guild and had conversations with them. They have some interest in maybe having some members participate in the type of thing too. I think it's there that we could do that. Now, it doesn't have to be this committee's decision. We could reach out, we could use Polco maybe, put some information out there, get more of the community involved in deciding the fate of the dumpsters. And for the reasons that Zach pointed out, our concern with typical corral is that's when you get illegal dumping.
Yep.
It's easy to dump it over the edge and forget about it. Then sometimes we can't pull the dumpsters out because someone threw a chair over there,
agree,
or
100%.
a couch. So the fact that it's more open, it kind of self-polices a little bit. We have less violations.
I agree.
But we have this deal with these dumpsters sitting out there, so. Wanted to get some opinions tonight and maybe be able to take that back to city manager and say, maybe we expand this forum and reach out to the community more.
What do you think, Mr. Browning?
I like the public art, and I
Me
think
too.
it's a unanimous decision.
I do. I don't think nobody here. Elaine, what do you think?
Do I get an opinion?
Yeah, just, you're a citizen, what do you think?
I like the art. I think it's
Alright.
fun.
I
have
We'll let
two.
you slide from
Can
back
you
there.
state your address?
I got two, I'm covered.
We'll let you slide, you're fine. Good. Does that help you?
It helps a lot.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, for your input.
Thanks for your opinion. Thanks for hanging around.
Item 6 is discussion of the 5-year resurfacing program.
Can you bring up the chart that says local? So I think you have some information in your packet, and I want to just pass down just updates to this. And this is a moving target. What's updated is the second and third sheet which says local. We're all aware that the state has recently passed a 10.5-cent increase in gas tax that will be effective in July. That plus additional funding that council approved gives us additional money this year and then future years to actually start paving some local streets. It's not all the local streets, but it's a start. What I just provided you in front of you on page 2, the yellow highlighted streets. That doesn't show up very well, does it?
No,
Okay.
sorry.
The yellow highlighted streets are streets we're proposing to complete this year. Cotswold Drive, Holly, Ravines Ridge, Silver Maple, Somerset. What we looked at is trying to package several roads in a fairly compact area because we get better pricing from contractors when they can work in one neighborhood. The blue shaded roads are streets that we're proposing for next year. And that's up in your ward, Chris. A lot of our frequent complainers, Bridgeport, Providence, Abraham, Northampton, roads in that area.
What page are you on?
I'm on page
2 and
1 and 2.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just going back and forth. They have it now.
Okay, well,
So, I got an extra too if you,
it might be easy.
okay, Brad. Yeah. Really the point of showing you this is that if you look at the very bottom of the last page, you see numbers 644,000, 666, 638. That's about the amount of money we're looking at packaging to spend, and you can see the roads shown for each year. It's not a lot of streets, but it's a lot more than we've been doing. And actually, we start moving around and doing different neighborhoods. We target this neighborhood, now we target that ward neighborhood, then we move down to the Hawthorne Beach, Dogwood area and target roads there. Try to get the best pricing, keep a fairly compact program, get the thing bid out first of the year. So we're actually already paving these streets by this time of the year. What I bring to you tonight is we're going to be providing more and more information through Access Delaware to the community to explain exactly what does this gas tax mean for our road program. There's still a pretty good sizable gap, but at least to say, here's the money we have. We said if we had more money, we're going to be doing this. And we want to say what this is and explain it to the residents. I think I'd like to hear that. And also show them an actual program. What we want to know is, from your perspective, how to manage that program. We put together, based on our evaluations, a local paving program. The first sheet is what we call our grant program. Those are the big roads we do. For example, the Bell Avenues, we talked about Union Street this year, parts of Houck Road. Those are ones based on grant funding, bless you, that we, that program is funded largely, but the local ones are different. So we can create these lists, and bring them to this committee, and bring them to council for approval and talking, or we can just use our best judgment from our experience and put together a solid program. I'll make sure it's available, but then just execute that program. Our program right now is by area because we get the best pricing, and we're starting for the very poor and poor streets and working up through the list with the funds we have, which is gonna be around 700,000 additional. There's potentially some more sources of funding that may come into play, another $250,000 later this year. But from my perspective, we wanna be able to move quickly. To move quickly, we have to have a plan. And so what I'm seeking is how do you want that plan to be executed? We can come up with these lists and just work through them as efficiently as we can, or we can bring them to this committee or to council and fully debate every street we wanna do, or anything in between.
You know how I'm gonna answer that, so.
Yeah.
You're the professionals, just, you know, I mean, I think it's good to update this committee on this and, you know,
Yeah.
just for reviewing stuff, but.
Here's what we're doing.
Speaking for myself, you guys are professionals, you know how to work it and do all this stuff, so.
Okay.
Agreed.
Good, I appreciate that, and it gives us some good direction, and we will, we're calling the target areas, like the big complainers right now. Chris, you've had a number.
Right, yeah.
And, we may be able to satisfy, the one resident who continues to call in that cul-de-sac, as well as some of the residents down in Cotswold, Somerset who complain. So we'll do as much public outreach as we can to get this information out there and let the public know we are doing exactly what we said we'd do if we get money, and then we'll just execute as fast as we can.
I think it's awesome.
Very good.
All right. Anything else?
That's all I had on that item.
Before we start, item 7, I need 1 minute.
Yeah.
I should have stopped before I came in.
No, that's okay.
Take a break for 1 minute.
If,
Yeah.
no, go ahead. Let's go ahead. Sorry.
No, just the numbers then.
Yeah, just do it.
Okay.
Yeah, keep reading.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
If we do the license fee,
Yes.
do we know how much that will generate
About
roughly?
$250,000.
All right, that gets us,
Significant.
that gets us close.
Yeah, it's significant.
All right,
That's
nice.
not much. So, if we, and that's some of the other information I was putting together for the committee. I'm not sure if that's in the packet. It's
I don't
not.
think it is, that's all right.
But it's information I can get for you, and that really shows,
That's something.
yes, we still need more funds.
Yeah.
But it allows us to have a more substantial program.
And we can start that in January or
That can't,
soon?
we can effectively pass legislation now, it wouldn't be effective until next year.
Okay.
Once it is effective, that's another 3 or 4
Is
streets.
it January that we can pass it?
I think that's when, yeah.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
all right, good.
So I think the intention is to bring that for council
All right.
consideration.
Groovy.
7 minutes.
Told you, that's right. Good.
Chris, I'm sorry, you did say, is there anything else related? There is, there's a really good string on the Nextdoor social media site right now regarding our streets. And it started off with, okay, so what's the deal with Delaware roads? And the commentator goes on to say, why are they in this condition? Are there any plans fixing them? And then I've been following it for the past week and a half, 2 weeks. I don't know if you're interested, I could email you.
I would love to see that.
This
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, there's a typical
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
bashing, but there's also some, people jumping in and saying, hey, it's, we kinda get what you pay for. So I would be glad to provide you that,
Please do.
that background
That'd be
information.
awesome. Okay, that's item 7, pavement base repair.
Yes. Okay, this year, street crew has started 10-hour shifts to kind of get a little more productivity throughout the construction season. We have identified for 2019, 3,275 square yards of base repair work. And a lot of that's William and Central, east and west. Mill and Field, our local streets, we're about 4,700 square yards in Mill and Field. Those are our local streets. So with that being said, we have about $290,000 for for materials, and out of that breakdown of that dollar amount is for crack seal, stone, concrete, and asphalt. So we're gonna be busy again this year. We did a pilot program last year with the 10-hour shifts, and we found that to be productive for us, getting our guys out there at 6 a.m. and getting a good maybe 9 hours of productivity out there on the roads.
Is that 290K, Charles, is that cover, I mean, is it
Yeah.
being pretty tight?
Yeah, it's tight, it's tight. I mean, we got a lot of base repairs. I mean, we had a rough winter, so we're gonna be looking at, I mean, if you look at Central, East Central, where we've done for the last 5 years base repairs, you're seeing where we didn't identify, those have failed now. They're pumping mud. So we're gonna try to get out there and get those repaired.
So Charles, of the all identified, how much will you actually be able to get to this year?
With staffing levels, obviously that's a concern, so we're probably likely to get maybe 40% out of that, and that's due to manpower. A lot of it's manpower. We utilize a lot of seasonals. Seasonals will be ramping up. We'll get our seasonals by the end of May, early June, and then we'll get maybe 2.5, maybe 3 months out of those if we're lucky, you know, around vacation time, kids going back to school. So, I mean, that's a concern with us having the manpower to be out there to be able to be productive. So it's manpower and the dollars.
So that, those numbers represent 3 years of effort,
You're right.
Yes.
if nothing else fails.
Yes.
Yeah.
As it is?
Yeah,
Right.
unfortunately, we had a lot of freeze thaws this winter, which hurt
That's
the road,
terrible.
followed by record rain, which is the last thing you want after a lot of freeze thaws. So if you, West William Street is probably the best example of how quickly a road can fall apart. And it's looking like East Central Avenue right now. Reason I want to ask Charles to talk about that is that's all we'll be doing from now all the way through probably October.
Yes.
Is patching. And therein lies the reason, as much as I'd like to help Main Street,
Yeah.
a project like that, it takes a week to 3 weeks away to
Yes.
through.
That was a good point you brought up, that
Yeah.
takes 3 weeks up and doing the other stuff.
Right.
so.
Yeah. So, that's what, our crews are out there, consistent, 10 hours a day, and that's what we'll be doing all summer long.
Okay.
All right.
Item 8 is capital improvement projects, schedule and prioritization.
Really, you should have a copy of a list of projects. You have that? Okay, so I just wanted to provide that to you, give you an idea of all the things we're working on this year. I'm not gonna go through any of them specifically, but because of how busy we are, there are projects partway down the list, like Hills Miller Road sidewalk. That was a proposal to get sidewalk extended from the new gas station a little further back, connecting to Bruce Road. The Curtis Street Firestone Drive Turling, if that project happens, to try to accelerate construction of it. It's not in our CIP. There's been some talk of doing these things. I'm just not confident that we can actually get to all these projects this year because we have so much going on. The bold-faced projects in the middle, you see just local streets under resurfacing. Well, beginning of this year, we didn't think we had money for resurfacing. Now we do, so that's another project we gotta make sure we execute. DeGenova Way is something that came up and we're getting it done. Sawmill Parkway extension plans, now there's some development talk about that. These things come up and interject themselves into an already busy schedule, and some things have to slip. So I just wanted to give you an idea of all the things we're working on, and as things slip, or if they do, we want to make sure that you're aware of them, and give you an opportunity if you said, oh no, I made absolute commitments that piece of sidewalk on Section Line Road or on Hills Mill Road be done. We need to know that. But if that not being the case, I just wanted you a chance to see everything we have. Think about those, keep it handy. If you have questions, feel free just to email those into us or get responses back as quick as possible.
Did you see that that's from Curtis Street, that's from Firestone to where? Where's that?
That's actually at Firestone. It's to widen Firestone to create the left turn lane. If you're coming through the curves,
Yeah.
onto Firestone Road.
Okay, all right.
And that would be partially funded by the development project that's not really moving forward right now, but probably will. And then funding off of that entire residential development are making payments yearly for 10 years for funding to help for that same project.
Gotcha.
Are we gonna have to hire some additional permanent staff at some point? Cause if you're staff and 40% and extra projects and,
Well, we've, staff requests for Public Works have been made for years,
Yes.
and they sometimes don't even make it as far as budget presentations. But in reality, we're working with less staff right now than we had in the year 2000. Two less staff members, but the city has grown immensely, our road infrastructure has grown, so yes, we will continue to make staff requests for specifically in the streets division and traffic division, but really the streets division is where we're really suffering. The 10-hour shifts essentially add more time because to do pavement work, you have to work long enough to let the pavement cool out before you can put traffic back on it. On the short 8-hour day, we have to finish by like 11:30. If we put anything in the ground after that, it won't be cool by the time traffic opens up and the guys knock off. So by working all the way to 4, we can put pavement in the ground up to almost 2 o'clock and still make sure it's cool. So that really gets us more efficiency just by creating a longer day, 4-day work week. But what we really need is more than one crew out there, because we're either doing base repairs or we're doing patching, but we can't do concrete ADA ramps. We should be doing too, and some patching in your neighborhood, or doing some base repair on Central and some patching somewhere else because we just don't have the manpower. So we have a crew of if everybody's there, we got 7 men to do it. And if you got equipment operators, guys with shovels, guys guys doing pavement, that eats up the whole crew right there. So yes, the answer is we understand, we've been accepting the fact that the funding is limited, but you can see how it limits what we can get accomplished when our need is exceeding our staff and our funding.
Great.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Moving on, item 9.
Yes.
Sidewalk maintenance program.
Sidewalk, yeah. Well, so the reason I bring this up is because one of the approaches we said when we have a road maintenance program is we'll go in as we pave the street, make sure we look at the pavement markings, the signage, everything else. Let's get all the infrastructure updated. Once we finished the Safe Walks program in 2016, we did everything in 10-year sweep. Now we're doing more of a demand-based repairs. What we're already noticing is a lot of people, there's still some things falling apart that people aren't calling in on. So we thought, well, when we go and do a road, we'll go and look at the sidewalk too and evaluate it accordingly. We can do that and then use the same approach as Safe Walks and say, we're going to pave Holly Road next year, so we're going to look at the sidewalk on Holly Road and require those repairs because we're paving your road, we want you to take care of your sidewalk. And there are some, we fixed some sidewalk on Holly, but now some more sidewalk needs repaired there. And we can approach it that way and systematically associate our infrastructure improvements and addressing them every time we pave a road.
I'm good with that.
Yep.
I think that's a great idea.
And we'll continue just to follow the rules of it's your
Just somewhat
sidewalk.
like your list, just.
Yep.
I think it's great. I think it's a good idea.
Smart. Yep. The only difference will be is we'll have to, when we did the Safe Walks, because it was so massive, we had this 18 to 24 month time frame from beginning to end. It'll be far shorter when we do it this way, like similar to other communities. If we go out and evaluate in end of the year, we'll probably say, hey, you've got 6 months to get this walk done. And we'll put that in the resolution necessity, or we're just gonna do it ourselves, and the whole thing will be fairly short time frame. I don't see us having $500,000, $750,000 programs at all anymore. There may be $50,000 a sidewalk to be done. And then we'll do our walk too. We'll take care of our street tree failures. In general, former Councilman Moore said as long as we plant street trees and tree lawns, we're gonna have sidewalk that needs to be repaired, and we're seeing that. He was absolutely right. And walk that has been repaired is gonna have to be repaired again, because those trees keep growing. But I thought in order to not have a big giant Safe Walks again, we just systematically move through this city as we pave roads, and we can keep track of it.
I think that's a great approach, Bill.
Okay,
I really do.
very good. So last item then,
Yeah.
associated with this was curb repairs. We want to make sure that our residents understand, because we have money for paving, that doesn't include money to fix curbs. And one of the first neighborhoods we're going to, Cotswold, Somerset, has some of the worst curbs in town. So we want to reach out for the HOA and say, look, good news, we can pave your road, but bad news, we don't have funds to fix your curbs, and still by Ohio Revised Code and local ordinance, the curbs still remain your responsibility. So we want to make sure we get that message out there. that we can't resolve all issues because we have some money. So we don't end up, we're still gonna get comments like you fixed the road, but you didn't fix the curb. Well, we didn't fix the curb because one, we don't have funding to do it. Two, it's your responsibility, and I'm pretty sure council, commented several years ago that we really don't have the stomach to go out there and do an assessment program
Right.
for curbs after following the.
Was it just crumbled curves, just like?
Crumbles, failed, yep. Now, we are looking at Westerville does a spot curb type repair program. I'm looking into see how they do that and how they fund it. But
Mhm.
largely, most communities follow our revised code, that when something needs done, the property owner is responsible. They find a way to work with the property owner to get it done in association with something else happening. So I want to make sure, I want to try to start telling the story that, look, we can't solve everything. It's good news, we can fix some of the pavement, but we can't fix all
So
the.
how do we relay that? So like, once we go into start to do a road, we do like a
Yeah.
mailer or a?
I think that's one way
Door thingy.
is we can start telling the story through Access Delaware with larger.
Okay.
And get that information out. But then I think specifically, for example, this year in Cotswold and Somerset, we need to get something door to door to those folks, or maybe through their HOA, and say, this is the story. We're gonna go and fix your road, but we can't do the curbs, and here's the reason why. At least so they're well informed. And if they have questions about that, they can come into council and talk about how they feel about that, so everybody hears it. But I think that way they have the information as soon as possible. What I just don't want to happen is we go fix the roads, and then you get a bunch of calls from
Yeah,
constituents,
yeah,
why didn't you
curb.
fix the curbs?
Right, agreed.
So I'm really trying to encourage more and more use of our public outreach channels and try to tell our story a little bit better. And we find once people really understand, they maybe not be happy about it, but at least they feel they've been informed.
They get it.
Yep.
Great. Awesome.
And that is,
Great.
that's it.
All right. Any other additional staff comments? Mr. Dukes, anything?
Nope.
Nope.
Anything.
Bill,
No,
anything?
No, I'm good.
no,
Good.
yeah.
Elaine, anything?
No, thank you.
Member comments, Mr. Browning?
No comments, thank you.
Only thing I have is I apologize for being late. Thank you. I knew it all day. I was running behind, so thanks for bearing with me. And outstanding meeting, I thought.
Good.
Information. Thank you for doing
Good.
that. Yeah, appreciate it. And with that being said, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Time is, I can't see that far.
7:05.
7:05. Great.
Groovy.
Thanks, guys. That was awesome.